All right, I'm going to discuss the Iliad by Homer. This particular edition I have is the Samuel Butler translation. It was first published in 1898. This is a prose translation. That's one of the drawbacks of it. So, if you're not familiar, the Iliad talks about the battle or the Trojan War, and it's an epic poem. Um, it's in Greek originally, so the translation here is not versed or lined. It's a prose translation, so it reads more just like your typical, book layout than it does. For instance, I'll just show you real quick. See how there's no line divisions or anything? It just reads like a book. There are translations out there that are laid out with the line divisions and everything, like a poem. One of those, I believe, is the Scott Fitzgerald translation. Now, I read the Odyssey when I was in high school, so again, we're talking 30 plus years ago at this point. Um, I found this at a used bookstore, and picked it up and read it, and it was pretty good. So I'm just going to talk about the Samuel Butler translation, the drawbacks of it, and one of the things that was kind of problematic for me was that it's Latinized. So you're not going to see Zeus or Hera, those names appearing in here. Instead, it'll be Juno and, actually Jove. Jove for Zeus and Juno for Hera. And instead of Athena, it'll say Minerva. Instead of Ares, it says Mars. Instead of Poseidon, it's Neptune. Instead of Hephaestus, it's Vulcan. So you can find little guide translation things or something if you just text in or type in your search engine. You can find something that'll help you with all the names of the principal characters. There's both the pantheon of Greek gods and all of the characters in here. So the Trojan War, essentially it's over Helen, the Helen of Troy, sort of the face that launched 1,000 ships. So we have the players, the Greeks, although they're not called the Greeks in the Iliad, they are referred to as the Achaeans, and there's a couple other names they use for them. The guys on the Greek side, the big ones are the sons of Atreus. So Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus. Menelaus' wife, Helen, was abducted by Paris, and his brother's name is Hector, and Paris takes Helen back to Troy, which causes the whole war. Some of the heroic characters on the Greek side that you'll get introduced to are Achilles, who mopes about for most of the book. He's kind of pouting emo goth boy or something, like just being a petulant child through most of the story. He's got beef with Agamemnon. Even though they're allies with each other, he's just sitting around the ships, like being a crybaby. You also have Odysseus, although he's referred to as Ulysses in here because, again, it's Latinized. Diomedes. Diomedes is a beast. He There's a lot of battles in here. Okay, so and it's pretty good. It's about, I would say probably, I don't know. I'd guess it's like 70% dialogue of characters delivering speeches when they tend to be pretty epic speeches. It's really good. So reading this, what you're not going to find in here is the story of the Trojan horse. That's in the Odyssey. And the book kind of just ends after a couple of funerals. It ends with 2 funerals. I'm not going to tell you who, but then the story just cuts off. So it's kind of a weird book. It drops us in right in the middle of the Trojan War. So they've been fighting for roughly 9 years at this point. You have the Greek gods pick sides in the conflict, and they will appear in the guise of humans from time to time. Lots of interference from them. And then they really have like the epic battle towards the end, and then the book just kind of peters out and it doesn't conclude. So if you want to find out the conclusion of the story, then you're either going to have to read the Odyssey or the Iliad by Virgil. I've never read the Iliad. I said I've read the Odyssey once, but it's been like 30 years. So I'll probably pick up a copy of that, but I don't think I'm going to get the Samuel Butler translation of that. I'll probably get the Fitzgerald translation instead, because that's the one I read. And I would probably recommend reading that. If his translation of the Iliad is as good as his translation of the Odyssey, then I would recommend getting the Fitzgerald translation. I know that it's laid out in poetic meter, and that's the way that this was originally supposed to be read. So I do want to talk about Dune, though, for a minute, and how this is related to Dune. When I was reading Children of Dune, you found out that Agamemnon is in the bloodline of the House Atreides, which makes a lot of sense because Agamemnon and his brother Menelaus are from the House of Atreus. So Atreus, Atreides. One interesting thing is that maybe retroactively I'm kind of elevating my score for Dune, is that Frank Herbert seems to have used Greek poetry, epic Greek poetry, as a inspiration for Dune, and it really kind of elevates my opinion of it. It almost looks like the format in this book, like the way I was reading it, I was going, this is really similar to Dune. So it seems like Frank Herbert was kind of aping the Homeric style, which is interesting. And of course, being a tragedy, really a tragic story, and then the story of Paul Atreides and his family is not exactly and a happy, uplifting story. It's tragic. So, again, it feels like it's much more Greek epic storytelling than it is, your classic heroic tale. So, all right, that's all I'm going to say. Great book. You should read it. This is a classic of Western civilization. Everybody from, Frank Herbert to Shelby Foote references this. His Civil War trilogy is often called an American Iliad, so you should definitely add this one to your reading list. It's 24 chapters long. Like I said, this version is Latinized, but I would recommend the Fitzgerald translation. It's probably the ease of reading is probably much better than this. This was kind of a rough read. Not that I didn't enjoy it. It's just Victorian era Elizabethan language in here, which isn't the most modern or up to date, which isn't exactly a problem. I mean, it's not like Fitzgerald's translation is recent. I think it came out in the mid 60s or something. So That's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.